Oh, here's a puppy. Welcome back to another episode of Becca's Corner of the World. There's a puppy thinking about maybe coming in to say hi. You want to come in? Probably not. Anyway, welcome back. Oh, help me. I don't know how to be on. I'm still very tired. No, I got my B12 shot. What day of the week are we at here? It is Saturday. I got my B12 shot on Monday, I want to say, the 2nd, whatever day of the week that was. And today is the 7th, so yeah, 5 days ago. I am still so tired. B vitamins wake you up, but like if you're deficient and you get them in a big dose, which is how I've had to start getting them, that make you real tired for a hot minute afterwards. I am tired, I guess is the point of all of this. So yes, exhaustion aside, welcome back to this week's podcast. So this week I wanted to dive back into my Inside Scientology series, and we're going to take a special look at their financial irregularities. Welcome back to another week of me apparently begging Scientology to come for me. Please don't actually do that. In all seriousness, I am well aware that I'm not even a gnat in their ear at this point. I am just one person. But I am one person who was on staff as a counselor/interrogator at one of the most corrupt Scientology organizations in America. I don't really know about like the rest of the world. I didn't hear all the rumors, but it wouldn't surprise me if we were top 5. During a time when we were even silently investigated by the FBI for financial irregularities. I didn't question all of the people responsible, but I sure did question a lot of them. It's no secret that Scientology is a cult for the rich and the powerful, manned by the lost and the broken. They have done a very good job at hiding just how very corrupt they actually are. Let's get into it. Scientology's twisted pay scale. Before we continue, we need to make one point very, very clear here. Scientology does not actually care about helping people. They are a money and power-making machine. That is it. Now that that's all cleared up, let's break down how they pay their staff and how that fuels their obsession with money and status. As we talked about last week, the staff gets paid on a weekly basis. There is no salary, there's no hourly wage. When you join staff, you actually have to sign a contract that you're agreeing to be paid on like a volunteer basis. So you're agreeing to like no pay some weeks. It's a sus contract. Yeah, there were many weeks that I worked completely for free, not a paycheck. If you're in the Sea Org, those weeks don't really matter so much because all of your housing, food, everything is actually paid for. So that money that you make, they usually had like $50 weeks, I think, a lot of the time. But that just goes towards like cigarettes. Basically, everyone smokes in Scientology. But all of those other Scientology centers that you see all over the world, nothing is paid for. You're supposed to have like a set schedule so that you can work a full-time job. You either work like Monday to Friday, like 9 to 6, I think it was, or you'd work evenings and weekends. So you could have like a full-time Monday to Friday, like normal, well-paying job and work foundation staff, that was called. Or you'd be day staff and work, the Monday to Friday full-time gig. And then you could have an evenings and weekend job. But that never happened. If you're on staff, then the cult is your only priority. There were many times where you're like, no, everything else is canceled. Like they call it dynamics, like the other areas of your life. I actually get into that a little bit later on. But I remember the woman that ran the place while I was down there, she'd always say all your other dynamics are canceled. Like stats are down, the numbers are down, like all hands on deck. Everybody's saying all dynamics canceled. This is the only thing that matters. And that was a lot. That happened all the time. I worked 16 plus hour days for like weeks on end regularly. So the weekly pay that the staff receives is actually based on a few different things. Everything comes out of the money that was earned that week. When we were doing our best, we were regularly earning like 80K a week, but that was at like the peak. A lot of the time it was significantly less than that. So large chunks of that amount immediately come out and go to like the headquarters, Flag, the one down in Florida. I can't remember all where, but they would go like, up lines, they call it. It's like all the upper orgs, and, utilities, rent, like whatever. So the remaining money is then divvied up amongst the remaining staff based on both the areas in which they are working and their own weekly stats, like their own weekly statistics, how they did that week. So the executives, the people running that specific church, they always make the most amount of money. And it would be based on the statistics of the general areas that they themselves worked in. And then the staff below them would be paid based on what job they had and then their own personal numbers for that week. So for example, we'll take a look at the area that I worked in. So like I said, I was an auditor, which is like a therapist or a spiritual counselor. And that means that my pay was based on how many hours were spent in the chair. Like when you started a session, you would say start of session. So literally from like start of session to end of session, that amount of time only, like not the time that I'd be there in the church, not the time that I'd be like doing anything else, like only the times that you were in the chair running a session. And they did that right down to the minute. The people above me, their pay was based on the total numbers for the week, based like everybody's numbers all put together. And then breaking that down even further, you weren't just paid by the hour. There were levels to the pay that you would receive. The full disclosure, the math to this pay system never really made sense to me. So my brain never fully absorbed it, but it was all based on credits. The money would be broken down into amounts called credits. And depending on your production for the week, you would get half credits. If your production was low, you would get whole credits if it was like the average numbers, right, what you're expected to get, or whole plus like bonus credits if you went above that. I can't give you a better description than that. I apologize. I did not get the math autism. This never made a lot of sense to me. They do it this way because, as is the norm with Scientology, they are now no longer responsible when people get upset about their pay. Oh, you're not making enough money? You just need to be working harder. Of course, this isn't the explanation that they give. According to them, this kind of pay scale encourages productivity and rewards people for being upstat, meaning like their statistics are going up. Sidebar, they do have an entire dictionary of all their different like terms and definitions. I'm going to keep breaking them down as they come up, but yeah, there's thousands of words. It goes beyond just the numbers for your one area or even just within your church. Every week, all of the numbers are compiled and churches across the world are in competition with each other. The year ends in March on Ron's birthday, of course. So it's called the birthday game. You want to be the best across the world because then you have like status, awards, there's like a big gala. Miscavige comes out, like it's a whole big deal. I can't remember if we won while I was there. I know that we were like the birthday game winners at some point. I feel like it might have happened again while I was there, but I can't say for sure. There were endless events. But yeah, Cincinnati was usually near the top. It was a big like to do that we were always, one of the top people. But what does this pay scale actually do though? It breeds corruption, plain and simple. Just how we made it to the top. Financial irregularities. Having a staff of over 100 people, depending on a paycheck based solely on the money that's coming in every week, can create a lot of pressure, especially when you consider that it's not a legitimate business. It's a cult disguised as a religion, depending wholly on other cult members to donate thousands of dollars at a time for courses and services, if not just generous donations. Yeah, it gets messy. The church where I worked in particular was especially corrupt, and it was known. The people who ran the joint were nicknamed the Cincinnati Mafia by other churches. It was a running joke that we would accept literally anybody. If they were denied services at any other church, they were like, okay, we can't take you, but go check out Cincinnati. As long as they came with a credit card. The people who sold the services, they worked in the registration department. So they were called the Regs. They were the money makers, and they made used car salesmen look like choir boys. Did you know that if you apply for a whole bunch of credit cards at one time and just full out lie on your application, you can easily get approved for like over 50K all at one time in less than 24 hours. The banks don't have time to communicate with each other if you do this, if you do it all at one time. So you can get approved for like an ungodly amount of money that you wouldn't have, you applied for one and then you apply for another one 2 weeks later or whatever. You do it all at once before they have a chance to let each other know, and then charge it all right back to Scientology. They call it a blitz, and they did this all the time. One of them even confessed to me that they had doctored somebody's paycheck one time, white it out. They doctored somebody's paycheck to make it look like they were earning significantly more money just to get them approved for a higher amount of money. Oh yeah, disclaimer, don't do this. This is called credit card fraud, and it is highly illegal. Scientology makes a real point of following the laws of the land. They cannot afford to be investigated again. And they know that they are on the brink of destruction. So any more like bad PR could topple them. However, their golden rule is the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. Dynamics meaning the different areas of your life. So they call it like your first dynamic, second dynamic, third, da 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 da. So it's yourself, and then like your family, your partner, your children, your groups. So like if you go to school, or like your coworkers, your country, right? Like your different groups. The fourth was mankind. Oh my God, I still remember all of this. The fifth was mess. Oh, buddy, which stands for material, energy, space, and time. Matter, energy, space, and time. Hey. So basically like the physical universe, right? Welcome to the moon man language. So that's like your fifth dynamic, is so like your personal belongings, right? Your car, your house, or whatever. Sixth dynamic is all living things. So like the grass, the animals, right? Seventh is spiritual. So like your, God, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of different words, but like your spiritual self, your spiritual well-being, right? The spiritual world. Ghosts. Those would technically count too. And then the eighth is like the supreme being, whatever you consider your God is like your eighth dynamic. That's personal for you, and you don't figure it out until you get there. You really never take this stuff fully out of your brain. Jesus Louises. Anywho, so that is their golden rule, is you have to do like the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. And when you're looking at like a choice or whatever, that's one way. Like if you're facing a tough decision, it's one way to help you make the decision is this the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics? So in this case, so if breaking one little law with a very high probability of like never getting caught, while simultaneously bringing in like almost all the money you need for the week so that everybody can get paid, that kind of sounds like the greatest good to me, right? This went on for years. I myself was a victim. I have over like 10K credit card debt. Because I broke a contract by leaving one of their churches in Canada. Excuse me. They sent me down to the States to train. And then I like finally made friends for the first time in over half a decade, because I had just gotten out of one really abusive relationship, right? It's a whole big to do. So I decided I was going to stay down there. And I had only been at the first place for like 2 months or something. Like maybe before they sent me down. So I owed them like over 10 grand for the like 2 services, like 2 courses. Anyway, that was like the first time that I was introduced to the credit card blitz. Thank the gods it was only like 10K for me. Sometime in 2019, their financial irregularities started getting a little too much attention. True story. A lot of the people there baked with Chase Bank while I was there. And so many people had gotten credit cards through Chase Bank, charged all of it to Scientology, and then defaulted on their loans, that Chase Bank just flat out refused to do business within the Church of Scientology anymore. Like at least that one branch in Kentucky. So my husband at the time, he baked with Chase Bank, and there was one day he went in and he was just trying to get like a can of pop or something from the cafe. So it was like $1, right? Like his card worked everywhere else, and he tried to charge it there and it just didn't work. And then he tested it. He like went to somewhere else, because there's like little debit card shit all over the place. Of course, they're not going to have just one spot where they can take money from you in a Church of Scientology. Come on. Come on. So he tested at other ones, and like, yeah, it got declined at every single machine within the building. Chase Bank just flat out refused. Like I did not know what bank could do that, but they cut it off. They could no longer be charged within that building anymore. And then they were investigated by the FBI. I have no idea how this didn't go anywhere. They worked really hard, like within the church, to make sure that nobody knew it was happening. But I could tell there was a serious vibe. Like I was really close with a lot of people in all the different areas. And within like HCO, which is like the ethics department, my girlies in there started getting real shifty, real stressed out. And I eventually had someone to crack and kind of fill me in a little bit of what was happening. I don't remember the exact amount, but I believe millions of dollars had been loaned to people via credit cards that, like I was saying with all the other ones, they were then maxed out directly at the church and then just defaulted. Like if you've got, 100 grand, 500 grand in debt, and or in credit card debt, and you can't afford to pay that, like, well, what are you going to do, right? You just don't pay it. Eventually, the scary people in suits stopped showing up. And that was then the last that I'd ever heard about it. But granted, I did leave the country shortly after all of that went down. So who knows? Within the cult, everyone responsible was shipped off to the headquarters out in LA, and they received like disciplinary actions, like within the church, some disciplinary actions, but none of them were actually kicked out. It only took a few months, but they all came right back. They just weren't the execs anymore. I remember a lot of us getting really annoyed because like they didn't hold the label of the execs anymore, and like we had different people there like running the place, but they very quickly were the ones like giving out orders and shit again. Like it was like nothing had happened, just their titles changed. Yeah, and then COVID happened. And that's when I was able to get away. So like I really don't know. For all I know, they could still be being investigated. But I'm still on all their email lists. Like if you ever want to really annoy somebody, not just annoy, if you hate somebody, because they'll never talk to you again after this, put them on a Scientology mailing list. It doesn't matter how often you block, report spam. Like I'd say like a dozen emails a day. They all go to my spam now, but like it's insane. Yeah, it looks like they're still operating business as usual. So not shut down yet. Because even if they aren't going through every bank anymore, even if some banks have cut ties, it doesn't matter because they still have other options. People as banks. Remember, Scientology is a cult for the rich and the powerful. The parallels between like the mega cult and Scientology really need to be studied. Scientology is used as a tool by the rich and powerful to gain more money and power. And it's run on the backs of the lost souls who are just looking for answers. Or in the case of mega, really hateful people just looking to justify their bigotry and hatred. However, having access to all of the perks of Scientology comes at a price. There were so many millionaires who walked the halls while I was there. I even took some of them in session. I won't name names, but if you live in the US, chances are you've enjoyed some of their butter. Being a Scientologist as a staff member is one thing. Like you are worked to the bone. You are worked crazy hours until you drop, and then you're blamed for dropping and sent to ethics. But I am still so grateful that I was never one of the people in Scientology with money. Not only were they milked to pay for courses and services well above and beyond what any one person could do in one lifetime or 5 lifetimes. One man I knew, he died of old age, literally in the middle of getting an assist, which is like a hands-on kind of healing thing or whatever. So like a woman, an auditor, was like giving him a body assist, like a calming kind of massage Reiki thing, doesn't matter. And dude died like in the middle of that. Thank God it wasn't me doing it. But he died of old age in his 90s, and he still had millions of dollars left on his account. And I remember hearing the Regis talking about it, like trying to figure out a way to like move it around or like give it to somebody else so they can use it. Like, oh buddy, it was disgusting. I don't think they did, but I also wouldn't be surprised at all if they did. Actually, I just never heard about it. Anyway, not only were they forced to pay for things well above and beyond what they would ever be able to use, but they were also forced to pay for other people as well. Some people unfortunately became like a one-person bank. They would go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, like into credit card debt, to loan out for other people to be able to buy things. And then those people would just need to pay them back like with interest. They were literally a one-person bank. But more often than not, the person wound up just not being able to pay them back, and they were stuck with all of those loans. I believe after they were investigated, all of those people were actually paid back in full by Scientology. I did forget about that earlier when I was writing this one. I still don't know exactly what wound up happening with the FBI, but I do recall that because there was one guy that I was auditing at the time who was like, I think millions in credit card debt. I think the dude was a millionaire. But he had so many loans out for so many people. He was owed so much money. And I feel like whatever the FBI did, he was cut like a very large check. I think like $500,000 or some shit he was paid back. If memory serves. It was a large amount. I don't remember if they were paid back in full or just a very large chunk. No, I think they were paid back in full. Yeah. Good for them. So yeah, like I said, I don't know exactly like what all went down with the FBI, but I'm pretty sure they did make that happen. So shout out to the FBI on that one. Well done, you get a pass. Other people wound up just buying packages for other people. One man in particular was a really, really sad story. I'm not going to name him out of respect, but he always seemed like a really, really good man. He was very rich. He donated millions to help build the new church. And he also bought like a lot of training packages for surrounding missions, like smaller churches. He bought a bunch of like training packages so people could train to be both like the course supervisors, like the teachers, doesn't matter. They can train to be that and auditors. Because it's like really expensive. A lot of people can't afford to do it, and a lot of missions like can't necessarily, like the smaller churches can't really afford to pay for their people to do it, which like they're supposed to. Anyway, so he did all of this really thinking he was helping people, and he even did them for like places up in Canada, which is how I wound up going from Canada down to the States. He kept doing this the whole time that I was there, paying for so many people to go in for services because he genuinely thought that he was helping people. He even tried to help a homeless man. This is really sad. He tried to help a homeless man by bringing him in for the purification rundown and like finding him a place to stay. He was trying to like get him on the right path. But the second that he was within our church's grasp, they exploited this mentally unstable homeless man and forced him to get over $50,000 in credit card debt. It's really sad. And then like charged it right back to the church, obviously. And so this good man stood up for him and like tried to tell these guys like, no, what you did is wrong, like get his money back. And they attacked him. They kicked him out. They blacklisted him. And then sometime after I left, trigger warning, he took his own life by driving headfirst into oncoming traffic on the freeway. I really hope they never forgive themselves for that one. Honestly, like, I put a little gif in here because, you know, I don't want to make things too depressing. Like Joel McHale saying, murder. Because seriously, like, nobody directly killed this man, right? Like, nobody had a gun to his head. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But if someone dies directly because of your actions, like, you have blood on your hands. Plain and simple. I hope they see this, and I hope they fucking hate themselves for the rest of their lives. Anyway, that got dark. My bad. I'm really trying to keep these stories light, but the sad reality is that Scientology is dangerous. Destroying somebody's credit is no joke. Making somebody go millions of dollars in debt and then kicking them out because they dared to ask a question is no joke. And then there's the age-old question, where is Shelley Miscavige? Hers is not the only story that I have heard. A woman that I worked with when I was down there, she'd been around for decades. I think since she was like a teenager back in the 60s or 70s. Sorry if you're seeing this, I'm aging you up there. And she told me a story about one time, I feel like it was maybe the 2000s. I'm not sure exactly when this happened, like 90s, 2000s. She was being investigated for potentially being a suppressive person, an SP. If you know the lingo, you know what I'm talking about. They're like the bad guys to Scientology, like people who try to attack them, right? I somehow haven't been declared yet that I know of. I'm still on their email list, so I'm guessing I probably haven't. But yeah, I'm definitely an SP. But anyway, she was being investigated for being one. So they locked her in the rat-infested basement for 2 weeks until they decided that she was cleared and okay to come back. I wasn't around for this building, but I heard the stories. Like, it was horrifying. Like, I'm not just saying rat-infested to be, like, hyperbolic. Like, no, there were literal rats in the literal basement where they literally locked her for literally 2 weeks. And this was a verified story. Like, there were other people around. We all worked together that have been around forever. And they, like, laughed about it. Like, oh, yeah, I remember when that happened. Like, she laughed about it when she told me the story. She said that she had done something wrong and that she deserved it, right? Like, she thought it was totally justified. Yeah, seriously. That is what they do. They get into your mind and they rewire how you think and how you perceive to the point where you truly believe that you deserve every bad thing that is happening to you. They convince you that it is in your own best interest to go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because Scientology saves you for lifetimes. Who cares about credit when you're talking about spiritual freedom, right? They are dangerous. and they need to be stopped. Girl, if you're reading this or if you end up seeing this, and, you know, you just heard your story being told, you did not deserve it. And please get out. You. All right, so it's kind of this week's vlog, I guess. How do I want to end? Y'all, I've got to start like scripting my endings. Whew. So yeah, that's what was really on my mind this week. You know, like I was saying at the top, like I know that I am just one person, but I feel like one person can make a difference, you know, and I don't want that to sound like conceited or like, oh, I you know, it's not about that, but like I went through what I went through and I am the only one that can tell my story, you know, and if somebody else can hear my story and learn a valuable lesson from that, like I'm gonna tell it, because nobody should ever have to go through what I went through. And there's a lot of nonsense out there on the internet, you know, a lot of ways to go astray. I'm just going to keep doing my part, trying to pay it forward, and, you know, hopefully make it kind of entertaining along the way. On that note, I'm actually going to jump over. I'm not going to go live. It is 11:15 here. I epically failed on trying to get this done earlier in the day. She said, surprising nobody. But I haven't had a firm start date yet on the live streams anyway. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give it a little test run. I finally got the right cords. Let me tell you, it was an ordeal to try to find the right cords to get this monitor set up to the laptop. I haven't tested it yet, but I know I've got the right ones. But of course, after I bought like the piece and then the adapter piece, we found the other piece while pulling out Christmas decorations. It's fine. I'm over it. Now I have multiple ways to make sure that we are connected. So hopefully the live streams will be starting soon. We can play The Sims, maybe watch some movies together, group watch, hang party, watch party. Oh, I remember that time everybody clapped. I just spit with that laugh. Oh my God. All right. On that note, I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you guys again for like tuning in and watching and listening. I'm starting to like get a little bit of imposter syndrome now. I like have got like 50 subscribers on YouTube, which is like a low number. I know that, but for me, like that's really exciting considering I'm just talking nonsense, and I hope that it, you know, makes sense. And you know, at least 50 of you have kind of thought I'm half decent, so that's something. It's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm gonna keep you know, trying to do better. Thank you all for showing up to the party so far, and hopefully it'll just keep getting better from here. Yeah, have an awesome week. Sleep tight, sweet dreams, or good morning, or afternoon, good evening, and good night. We'll see you later. Bye. Oh, crazy eyes.